Okay, I'm here with, this is Horton. Yes. Thank you, Horton. This is Mowgli. And over off camera, we have Kevin, who is a girl. There's a movie reference that I've never seen the movie. Well, I've seen it from Up. So Kevin's a girl. Okay, so Kevin is not in the picture because Kevin and Horton got into a fight, a couple fights actually. Now the first one happened, this is the roadmap to success, by the way. Now the first fight happened, basically, they used to be kenneled together. You dropped a sheet. And so basically the first fight they got into was when they were being released from the kennel. They were both very excited. Now, dogs have something called redirected aggression, which means I'm frustrated, I can't get to what I am, so I'm going to go after what's next to me, or different things. Most of us confuse excited for happy when it comes to dogs. The reason for this is, right now the mouth is closed. When a dog has his mouth open, when they're stressed or anxious or out of breath, they're opening their mouth to let liquid evaporate off their tongue. Well, that looks to us like a smile. We have a word for this called anthropomorphization. And so because we look at that, we see a smile, we assume excited is happy for dogs. But excited is an unbalanced state of mind, just like any other. And so if a dog is out of balance and then something stressful or intense happens, it's very easy to make mistakes. If I'm going to have a surgeon slice me open, the last thing I want her to be is excited. I want her to be calm, balanced, and focused on her job at hand. We make more mistakes when we're overexcited. Fights happen when we argue too intensely, and so on and so forth. So one of the things I'd like the Guardian to do, if I don't have it linked up here, you can please message me and remind me, and I'll add it to the write-up. But there's a dog I worked with a couple weeks ago named Ray, R-E-Y, just like the Star Wars character. And she's a German Shepherd. And I go over a video how to release a dog from the kennel in a calm way. And so I'm not going to go through it here, but if you go to doggoneproblems.com, click on where it says dog training tips, and it's there's two videos. One's this roadmap to success, which is a long one. Watch the one above it, and that's the one about letting the dog out of the kennel. And after a while, the dog will learn, look, I'm not allowed out of the kennel until I'm laying down and completely calm. It'll take a little bit of time, but eventually the dog will learn. Just because the door's open doesn't mean I can run out. So I think this fight happened when they were both very excited. Or you want to get down? Is that what your thing is? All right, well, I'm going to help you down since you have a little bit of a leg injury. Now, he also has he's an excited urinator. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. That's okay. Whatever you want to do with him is fine. So basically, he has a kind of a secured area, but he's an excited urinator, and he might have just peed a little bit on it when the Guardian went to pick him up. So she's doing a little housekeeping. So basically, teaching the dog to be calm before we let him out of the kennel will be key. And teaching them to be calm in a lot of areas will be key. So it's not just for the kennel. Look for other opportunities. He likes going undercover.
He does.
There we go. And so for excited urination, same thing as submissive urination. It's basically when the dog is so excited it can't control its bowels. Now, part of it is dependent on the volume in the bladder. So if there's something that's going to happen, try to set your dog up for success by taking it outside and letting him have a bathroom break before the stimulus happens. The other thing is because, like I talked about, excited is not necessarily happy. A lot of times we see the dog excited, we pet them. A lot of times they get so excited, that's when they lose control of their bowels. One question I didn't ask the Guardian off camera, when Horton you go over reach to pet Horton, does Horton often flip over onto his back?
Yeah, and then pee on himself?
Yeah. Okay, so that's the most submissive when they actually pee on themselves. So when you're to reach for the dog, if the dog starts rolling over, I'm going to mimic with you a little bit. So you reach for the dog and it starts lifting over. When it gets on its side, stop the process. Don't say no, don't get mad at the dog, just stop the process. What you're saying is, when you move over to a submissive state, which is on the back, I lose interest in you. I'm not going to chastise you because it's a lack of confidence issue. I'm not going to get mad. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to move on to doing other things. So we stop from getting too worked up before the dog gets a chance to actually start the urination. Also, excited times, like when you're letting him out of the kennel, he has a kind of a confinement area. And so when you go over there, do the same thing that I showed you for Ray. So when you walk over there to let him out, do you normally open the door or do you lift him up over?
I open the door.
Okay, better to do that. So when you go over, when you go over there and he's all excited as he's barking at you, just wait. Just stop. If he barks more than 3 times, I would walk away and sit down somewhere. When he stops, get up and start walking towards it. As soon as he starts barking, stop and turn around and walk away. Maybe stop at the first bark, second bark, turn and walk away. This is also operant conditioning. What we're saying is when you bark or get excited, it causes me to stop the process of letting you out. So eventually it'll be a lot of start and stops. And I had one client who's like, no, just keep doing it forever. It took 45 minutes, but finally the dog did it. So most dogs, that's way too long, but there is a tipping point. So keep at it. Most of us just are not persistent enough to reach the tipping point. You want a little treat? I thought so. Okay, so once you get to the point where you can get all the way to where it is, as soon as you start reaching for the handle, if he starts wiggling or gets up, pull back. Say sit. He has 3 seconds to sit. If he doesn't sit within 3 seconds, turn around and walk away and sit down. If he does sit, then we reach for it again. If he gets up, we pull back. So I say sit a couple times, 3, maybe 5 times, not in a row, but for 3 separate or 5 separate instances. But after the 5th one, I would just pull back and just wait. And as soon as he sits, then I would start the process. This is really, so we're teaching the dog, when you offer the behavior I want, it starts the process of me letting you out. When you offer behaviors I don't want, it stops the process. I'm not yelling at you, not punishing you, but the consequence is nothing happens. After a while, the dog will start doing what you want, which is sitting and being calm. That will help reduce the excited urination as well. Now, when he goes, and that's just to let him out. But if you go to pet him or reach for him and he flips over on his back, immediately stop, same way. So you're saying when you offer that submission, you become invisible to me. And after a while, he'll roll back up, and then he does, you reach for him, and if he lifts it up, keep doing that. You want to do it, don't wait for him to go all the way so he's on his back. So if he's like this, do it when he starts going like that, stop. So don't go all the way when he gets to this point, because then that's when the pee's going to happen and you're going to get the fountain. So eventually he will learn that submission does not get me attention from my humans. And because my goal is to get attention, I'm going to start offering the other behaviors. Now, that's why we talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose, he did some demand barking earlier. He was just bark, 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 pet me. And his guardian did a brilliant job of ignoring him. Any attention to a dog when it's acting out is validating. Any attention, matter of fact, anything a dog is doing when you give it attention or pet it is what you're specifically rewarding. When I first came in, one of the first things he did is he barked and she's like, Horton, quiet. Well, that's a great way to get her attention. And it blows our minds as humans because good attention and bad attention for us are very different. In the dog world, if you're giving me the attention, guess who's not getting the attention? Guess who else? Kevin's over there. So after a while, the dog's like, yes, I'm getting yelled at, but I'm getting your attention. So we're not going to give it any attention. We're just going to ignore. Now, when the dog does offer a behavior that we want, let's say the dog's barking, and we just ignore, then the dog sits. As soon as it sits, I reach over and pet it on its chin and say, sit. Just say sit. Don't say good sit. Just say the command word. And pet it a little, at least once, to as many times as you want. Most of us train our dogs to misbehave because when it barks, we disagree with it. If it chews something up, we disagree with it. It pees, we disagree with it. But as soon as it comes to us, we ignore that. It sits down, ignores it, it lays down, we ignore it. It brings us a ball, we ignore it. All the things that we say we like, we don't get, the dog only occasionally gets our attention. The things we don't like get our immediate attention. And this is how most of us train our dogs to do the exact opposite of what we intend to do. One of the things we also do is we often accidentally assign command words. So if the dog is really excited and I say calm down, and it's spazzing out, jumping up, I say calm down. The only time I hear calm down is when I'm getting excited. And because dogs learn through repetition, consistency, and good timing, every time I'm excited, I hear the word calm down. So clearly the words calm down mean get excited. So it's now the opposite of what you're actually intending. So right now, really relaxed. This is a good time to pet the dog and say settle. Zen, chill, Buddha, chillaxin, vacation, whatever word is you want to mean to be relaxed. Because the context the dog hears when it's getting this is being relaxed. So eventually when I say chill, the dog knows what I mean. It doesn't mean it'll necessarily respond. That gets into respect for you and all the rest of that stuff. But at least now it understands what it is that you want. So be careful about saying, the other thing is if you say it's okay when it's not okay, that after a while the dog's like, the human's not listening to me. So instead of actually reporting the human or going to the human when I need help, I'm going to go away from the human. I'm going to go handle it myself. I'm going to fight the dog or whatever the case may be. So it's important we don't dismiss it. Anytime a dog is reactive, the best thing you do is increase the distance between them and whatever they're reactive for. Getting back to petting with a purpose, and we'll go through some things I want you guys to do with them together. But basically, for petting with a purpose, what I want you to do is if the dog comes up and barks at you or nudges at you, you're going to give it a command or a counter command. Tell it to sit or to lay down. And I would recommend that you do not practice shake for any of the dogs for any reason whatsoever. When a dog, we shake, they start thinking, well, if you like this, you must really like this. But if a dog climbs up on top of you, especially when you come home, that's a way of claiming you. And that can be confusing for the dog. So instead, when the dog comes up and nudges you, it's telling you what to do. So you tell it to sit. Instead, you give it a counter order. If it does sit within 3 seconds, you pet it on its chin and say the word sit and only the word sit. And then pet as much or as little as you want. If it doesn't sit within that 3 seconds, show the dog, I have other things to do. Pull out a magazine, watch some TV, do something else. After a while, the dog's like, hey man, this playing hard to get. I don't like this. So I'm going to do what my human asked me to do, because sitting is not asking too much. It's already sitting, asking him to sit over here or ask it to lay down. So once it does, you pet it on its chin, say whatever it is, when it complies within that 3 second window. If not, you show it, I got other things to do. After a while, the dog will start coming over to you and sitting down to prepay for the attention. When it does that, make sure you do reach over and recognize at least one pet for as long as you like. Otherwise, the dog will go back to nudging you or pawing at you. And eventually what the dog learns is if I tell the human what to do, nothing happens. But if the human tells me what to do and I do it, I get rewarded. So I am now motivated to want to listen to the human. And even if you want to pet the dog, you should still tell the dog to sit or to lay down. And if it doesn't, don't pet it. After a while, that not getting that attention will motivate the dog to do what you want it to do. Now, we do these things so often we don't, or we do or don't do these things so often we forget. So if somebody comes in the room and sees I'm petting one of the dogs who's standing up, they might suspect I forgot to pet with a purpose, and they say the word paycheck to me, or another word if you prefer. I say paycheck because petting a dog is our way of paying them. So somebody says paycheck to me, I go, no, you missed it. I asked the dog to stand up before you open the door. When you open the door, he stood up, and the dog's like, well, he's on one page, he's on one page, I can be on my own page too. So if somebody comes in and says paycheck, I stop petting it even if I did it right. I tell the dog to sit. When it sits, I pet it on its chin. I say sit. So I asked the dog to sit before he came in, and when you stood up, blah blah blah. And that way, it helps the dog, helps us remember, because I have clients that I've watched inadvertently pet their dog when they're trying not to pet their dog. So it's just a watchword to help us stay on target. For passive training, which is rewarding the dog when it does voluntary behaviors on its own, every time the dog comes to you, you should pet it and say come. Every time it sits, pet it and say sit. When it lays down, pet it say crash or chill. The guardians here have discovered the dog knows hand signals. All dogs learn from signals or motions or lures first. They hear the command word after. They learn it after. But a lot of us use it out of context. They tell the dog to sit. When the dog sits, we're like, you're such a good boy. Well, you're such a good boy doesn't mean sit. So when the dog sits, pet it and say sit. Put it in context. When it lays down, pet it and say crash. When it drinks water, call it happy hour. When it eats its food, say it's sushi or whatever the word is. Brings you a toy, name all your individual toys. Now you can have a richer vocabulary, and you're just waiting for the dog to voluntarily offer you the behavior on its own. And then you're marking it and rewarding it. After a while, the dog is inclined to want to do that behavior because it instantly gets your attention. And so it takes away a lot of the baggage and makes it a lot easier. Now, one of the first things we talked about was exercise. And this might be a little lick marking, but that's okay. I'm not going to probably be back. So basically, but for you guys, if he's doing this a lot and you don't like it, immediately stop or you lose the privilege of being on the couch. Now, if you do like it, you can use passive training. As soon as the dog licks you, say kisses. My dog's kisses means give me a lick. Love means lick me right here on my nose. So every time he licks me here, that's when I say love. When they lick me here or anywhere else, I say kisses. Yeah, you want some kisses? All right. So these are basically, and somebody has a little gas. So basically, we're going to start rewarding the dog for the desired actions, behaviors we want, and that's going to cause the dogs to want to do those things. And those things will increase the dog's respect for you as an authority figure. It'll boost the dog's confidence, and confident dogs are far less likely to get in fights or be boisterous or act out. Okay, so we also talked about exercise and rules. I'm just going to give you a quick summation. Remember throwing the treats up and down the stairs. If you forget how to do both ledges, let me know, call me or text me and we can go over that. But remember, when you throw it down those steps, come up with a funny word like Cuba or Jamaica when the dog licks it up. And not for this, but for this and everything else. Treat should go in the dog's mouth first, then they should hear the command word after. So, sit, sit. So I said it once during the command stage, and I said a second time during the reward stage, when the treat was in the mouth and the dog is in a sit to connect the reward with the action with the command word. And after a while, the dog wants to do those things. Okay, so throwing the treats up and down the stairs, throw it down. When it licks it up, say Jamaica. When it comes back up, give another one, call it Aspen. Keep throwing up and down until the dog won't come up and down anymore, and count each down up as one. Now you know what their maximum threshold is. You want to exercise about 50 to 75% of it. So he's probably going to need a lot less than Kevin. So the idea is to figure out with an empty stomach the first time, max them out, and then exercising that 50 to 75% of that multiple times a day. Exercise is best about every 3 to 4 hours for dogs. Now, Horton doesn't need it. He's got some injuries and he's an older dog, but definitely needs it. But Kevin definitely needs it. So the more exercise we get them, the better we can set them up for success. So we're going to walk them together, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. We should exercise them first. Another one that you can do is we have a snuffle mat. It's not the best snuffle mat I've seen. I want one that's really hairy, for lack of a better word. Also, you might want to start feeding the dogs, especially Horton. That's great stimulating for him, because he can't be as physical. That'll help keep his mind alert, and it'll be physically draining and keep him preoccupied. Also using an omega treat ball. They have to nudge it just right to get a couple pieces of kibble to come out. Other forms of exercise that you could do are walks, but remember, when you're thinking about a walk, don't think of completing your circuit, think of the duration. I'm going to walk down the road for 15 minutes. When I get to 15 minutes, I'm going to cross the street and turn around and come walk back on the other side of the street for new sniffs. And then the dog can sniff as much as it wants. Remember, sniffing on a walk is very physically draining, it is relaxing, and it is stimulating for the dog. So it benefits. It's more effective to let the dog sniff for 15 minutes on a walk than to go for a 30-minute walk where they're not sniffing. So, if we take out the circuit, we're thinking about the walk in the purpose that we intend it, which is to burn the dog's energy or to stimulate it, right? And different walks. He's gonna need a different amount of energy than him. So that's why we exercise them separately on the stairs. Playing fetch is great. Remember, for Kevin, when she has something in her mouth, hold a treat up, wait for her to drop it. When she drops it, pop it in her mouth and say drop, then don't pick the object up. Then when you're playing fetch, when she throw the ball and when she brings you the ball, hold the treat out. When she drops the ball, we pop the treat in her mouth and we say the word fetch instead of drop. But we first introduce the concept with low value items, toys that the dogs are allowed to have at any point that they don't think we're going to try to take. The guardians have been physically taking the ball away from the dog, and some dogs like to play that game a little bit, but it also confuses them in some other areas. So instead, we would teach the dog first, when I ask you to drop it and you get rewarded, and then later on we're playing fetch, the dog come and just drop the ball voluntarily. Now, once it drops the ball, I would say, I'm only going to play fetch if you drop the ball. And so at first you might have to motivate it with the treat to get it to drop the ball too, and then say the word fetch to mark it, make the word a little bit more desirable. And then once it drops it, then I pick it up and throw it. And once the dog now is consistently coming and spitting the ball out, then I make the dog sit before I pick it up. And then I throw it. And eventually I pick it up, sit, pick it up, and then sit again before I throw it. So you're adding more and more criteria, and you're adding the dog to do other things and to wait for permission to do things. This is the genesis point where how dogs start developing self-control. So it's really helpful. Some other rules that we went over, if the guardians are eating here at this table, the dog should not be allowed on the carpet. Right now they're right underfoot, and that's they're waiting for food to fall, but that can also become a fight really easily. It also doesn't help them practice self-restraint. Staying off the carpet when I have food does. So when you're eating the table over there, they shouldn't be within 7 feet of you there. I would say when you're cooking in the kitchen, they're not allowed to be on the tile of the kitchen. You can use those escalating consequences by marching back and forth away from the dog or towards the dog to enforce that. Now, if you forget how to do that, if you go to doggonproblems.com, click on dog training tips, on the search box on the right side of the page or the bottom of the page, type in invisible boundary. I have a number of videos where I show people how to establish a visible boundary the same way I explained to you, and sometimes it's easier to see people do it. If you have questions on it, please call me or text me. Let me see. We also taught other rules. You have to sit before I open the door. Go to the door and say sit one time. Dog doesn't sit, then I walk away and I sit down and I wait 1 minute the first time. Then come back and say sit again one time. If the dog doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I walk away and sit down nearby for 2 minutes. And then I give the dog another opportunity. If it doesn't sit this time within 3 seconds, I walk away and sit down for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes, then for 16. I keep double length of time. But boy, as soon as that butt hits the ground, man, that door flies open like it's grease lightning. After a while, the dog will sit at the door as his way of asking to go outside. I would do it for the door there. I would do it for the kennel. I would do it for this kennel, any other doors in the house. Sitting is a more subordinate position. The more you ask your dog to sit, the more respectful they will be for you, right? Kisses, passive training. Okay, so let me see. Make sure that you're eating something before you feed them, and then I want you to feed them one at a time. Now, because Kevin has attacked Horton, I would like them to be free, but that creates a little bit of a dangerous situation. Right now, the guardian's feeding one in the kennel, one in the long-term confinement, one out. And you can do that, but the dog's not learning anything from that. This is an activity we're going to do 2 or 3 times a day anyways. So if we just add a little bit of structure, and you can also go to Dog Problems, click on Dog Training Tips, and type in structured feeding. I go through how you can feed multiple dogs. I have one, I think it's like 4 or 5 dogs, where I show you how to feed them one at a time. Now, the addendum that I would do here is I would probably use a leash and have Kevin attach the leash. The feeding area is just right around here, correct? So that way Kevin could get to about here, but can't get any further. I would prefer to do it without a leash eventually, but right now we have to make sure that all the dogs stay safe and we don't create any fights, and feeding is a big important activity for dogs. So if he's barking and protesting, message me about that. But I'm hoping that leash just helps him practice not being able to get closer. After like a week or 2, we could probably try doing it without him, with him being on the leash but not tethered, with somebody else standing right here. So as soon as he runs past, you can step on the leash and prevent him from getting to Horton. But the idea is we're going to feed them based on the order of their rank, because dogs eat basically in seniority. And so since Horton's the oldest dog and Kevin is the youngest dog, we'd like to have them eating on opposite ends of the deal, so the dogs see each other as having more rank, and also seeing that I can't get to Horton when he's eating because my guardians are not allowing it. Or when I'm eating, Horton's not allowed to come near me, the guardians are not going to allow it. We have to act like leaders. And I think the reason the fights happened between these two, is I think that number 1, there was too much excitement. Number 2, they really didn't respect their humans as authority figures, so they both are thinking that they're authority figures, and then they got into a fight with overstimulation. They also didn't have a lot of rules. Exercise could be a little bit better. Guardians actually do a pretty good job of exercise comparatively to most of my clients, but definitely needs to be more. And also, before we have anything we're going to do with them together, they need to be, Kevin needs to be exercised. Now, when dogs process things, get over things, they do it by literally moving forward. So what I'd like you to do is get in a habit of daily walking these two together, Horton and Kevin. Right now, they've really been separated. They do a pretty good job. I mean, they're not like staring at each other, going challenge each other. There's a little bit of that, I think, that I didn't see. But I mean, for the most part, they're great. So we want them to start building up some positive associations. So I think you probably will be able to walk them together from what I've seen. I could be wrong. But if they are reactive, increase the distance, and then have your husband and walk, or, partners. One person has one dog, one person has the other. We're gonna keep a short leash. Nobody can be in front. And we're going to walk them together. You might have to be across the street. I don't think you will from what I've seen. But I think you probably hold a short leash on either side and then basically just walk them around the block. So every day they have this bonding shared experience. We both would have kicked that squirrel's butt if we weren't on the leash. We both wanted to pee over there and she wouldn't let us. We both wanted to bark here and she didn't stop. But now they can see each other. They can smell each other. They're doing the same activity and there's no hostility. And after that happens enough, they get to know each other a little bit better again, and they're in a habit of not fighting and attacking each other. I've had dogs that after like a couple months of that, combined with rules, structure, petting with a purpose, pass training, the dogs stop doing it. And so when we do get to that point, let me know. We might want to incorporate a muzzle, and you don't want to just throw a muzzle on and put them out. That is a guarantee almost for failure. What we're going to do is teach Kevin to like being on the muzzle by positive reinforcement. And then when we start getting together, when I use a muzzle, I think that the dogs are good to get together and there are no more problems. I'm using the muzzle just as a safeguard, just to make sure. And so that would be a progression we'd like to get to in about a month. So in about a month, let me know how it's going, but I want you guys walking them every day. And it doesn't have to be a marathon walk. If you're really in a hurry, maybe just go down 6 houses and cross the street and come back another 6 houses. Now, this is not where you're going to let them sniff. I mean, they can sniff as long as they don't cross over. So just say there's a line for my hip. You can sniff anywhere you want on this side, unless one's sniffing and one wants to go, then maybe, so you have to do what's best for both of them. But the idea is to have that shared experience. Okay, let me think, what else? Anything else I want to go over that we talked about that I didn't mention? I know I cover a lot. So if there's anything I forgot to go over, please call me or email me. Preferably text me is the fastest way to reach me. Also remember, if your dog is excited and you pet it when you're excited, you're going to make it more excited. Fearful, more fearful. Submissive, more submissive. So the dog is nervous, you can lay your hand on the dog and let the dog know, I'm here with you. But if it's reacting, the best thing you do is increase its distance away from whatever it is until you can get to sit and take a treat. Sitting and taking a treat is a good indication the dog is calm enough, and then you can get back together. But if there is a fight, separate them as much as you need to. Wait for them to settle down. If you need to, maybe exercise Kevin a little bit, but then try to take them out for a walk as soon as you can afterwards once they stop beefing. We don't want the last thing they remember to be the fight. Now, one last little thing. Dogs who are confident are much less likely to show aggression and be frustrated and the rest of these things. So one of the things I'd like you to do is go to YouTube. All these dog trainers run a dog show. So they'll show you how to all their tricks and commands. Find an easy trick or command. Make sure it's positive reinforcement over this. If there's any force of punishment, you don't want to use it. But basically, teach them all to roll over. And the next week, teach them how to play dead. Next week, teach them to get your slippers. Whatever it is, the more skills you can teach them, first of all, the dog respects you a little bit more as an authority figure because you're acting like an authority figure through your actions. Number two, the dog is getting a boost of self-esteem because they're amassing new skills. Once the self-esteem gets to a certain point, you don't have the submissive urination as much. You don't have the feeling like I need to go after the other dog. And again, I think it was mostly overexcitement, but building up confidence is a great prophylactic approach for a lot of behavior problems. Is that right? Yeah. Well, all right. So this is Mowgli. I keep on saying Mowgli. Is it Mowgli?
It's Mowgli.
Mowgli. I'm saying Mowgli because I know Joe Mowgli, who is, yeah. But this is Mowgli. And behind the camera over here, we have Horton, who's not named after the Reverend Horton Heat. And then we have over here Kevin off camera, who is from the movie Up. And she's a girl. And this is the roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.